An old man passed away a few days ago. He was 96 years old. It was a peaceful death. His children were by his side, and his wife of 74 years was the last to leave this world. His name was John. During his life, he worked as a carpenter, a simple man who lived a simple life in a small town in Ohio. But that all changed one night when he saw the end of the world. It was around midnight when John got out of bed to go to the bathroom. Suddenly, he heard a loud crash outside. Startled, he looked out the window to see what had happened. And that's when he saw it. The sky was a deep shade of red. All the stars had vanished, and in their place were strange symbols that seemed to be dancing around in the darkness. He went back to bed, trying to dismiss what he had seen as a trick of the light. But an hour later, he was awoken again, this time by a scratching sound at his window. As he stood there watching, he saw one of the symbols from earlier, a tall, thin figure with what looked like a staff in its hand, slowly scratching at the glass. Terrified, he backed away from the window and tried to convince himself that what he was seeing wasn't real. But then the scratching stopped, and a voice echoed inside his mind. A voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It told him to come outside, to follow the scratching. Curiosity and fear warred within him. But ultimately, he decided to follow the voice. He crept downstairs, careful not to wake his wife, and opened the front door. Outside, the scratching continued, now accompanied by a low humming sound. As he followed the noise, he felt a strange pull, like something was beckoning him to come closer. And then he saw it again, the tall, thin figure from before, along with several others. They were all gathered around a circle of rocks in his front yard, their backs to him, their scratching now forming some kind of rhythmic pattern. He wanted to run, to scream, but his body wouldn't respond. He was frozen in place, unable to move as the figures turned towards him. Their faces were obscured by the darkness, but he could feel their eyes boring into him, their gazes cold and unfeeling. One of the figures raised its staff, and John felt a jolt of electricity shoot through his body. The humming grew louder, and then they began to chant, their voices echoing in his mind, filling him with an overwhelming sense of dread. And then they were upon him, their hands gripping his arms, their bodies pressing against his, their gazes boring into his eyes. He struggled, but their grip was too strong. He screamed, but his voice was lost in the wind. And then everything went black. When Martha awoke, she found John missing from their bed. Concerned, she went to check on him, calling his name softly. No answer. She went to the bathroom, but he wasn't there. Then she heard it, a rhythmic scratching sound. She went to the window and looked out. There in the darkness, she saw the same tall, thin figures, their scratching forming a pattern that seemed to be growing brighter. Alarmed, she called out for John, her voice echoing in the night, but there was no answer. And as the scratching grew louder, she knew in her heart that something was terribly wrong. Paranormal investigators believe that John may have stumbled upon a portal or interdimensional gateway while investigating the scratching sounds. The strange symbols in the sky may have been a sign of an impending shift in dimensions. The tall, thin figures, whatever they may be, seem to have been waiting for someone to follow them. And John, driven by his curiosity and fear, was the one who answered their call. What happened to John after that fateful night remains a mystery. Some say he is trapped in another dimension, forevermore. Others say he is simply dead, his mind overwhelmed by the terror of what he had seen. But there is one thing that we may never know. The reason why John was chosen. Why did the scratching start the moment it did? Why was he compelled to follow it? And why was he the only one who saw and heard the strange happenings that night? Perhaps these questions will never be answered. Perhaps some things are best left unknown. For it is in the darkness that the unknown lies, and it is in our nature to fear what we do not understand. Thank you for watching. Do you believe that John was taken by extraterrestrials or interdimensional beings? Let us know your thoughts. Also, please subscribe to the channel